I can't even eat like this. Sally, you'll take care of me, right? My husband said this, and I looked back at him with a blank expression. My name is Sally. I'm turning 28 this year. Matthew has been my childhood friend. Though Matthew is 2 years older, he's always felt like a troublesome younger brother to me. Matthew is the type who's not very savvy. For example, if he pranked with friends, he'd be the only one caught and scolded, or despite studying for hours for a test, he'd miss a perfect score due to careless mistakes. He's aware of his lack of savvy, but not knowing what to do about it, his personality has become increasingly self-deprecating. Adding to this was the presence of his brother, Sam. Sam was a well-behaved, literate, and a truly impeccable human being. He was gentle and kind, always looking out for Matthew. However, even Sam's concern seemed to bother Matthew. Matthew, you're fine just as you are. Dad says so too. Don't compete with me, just follow the path you love. What, are you saying I can't beat you? That's not it. Leave me alone. I'll definitely join a better company than you and have a better life. Sam's words didn't reach Matthew, who continued to compete with Sam. It got a bit better when Sam moved out, but Matthew's complex towards Sam is still strong. Having watched them since they were young, Matthew has always been someone I felt I needed to protect. Maybe because I'm a younger woman, Matthew often vented to me. I work so hard, yet my brother easily surpasses me. It's unfair. I know you're working really hard, Matthew. It's frustrating, isn't it? Everyone's making fun of me. You think I'm dumb too, don't you? I don't think that at all. I couldn't even get into school like you, Matthew. I always think you're amazing. This way, I comforted Matthew, and seeing him regain his confidence made him think he needed me. We ended up getting married without a formal proposal, it just happened. Matthew didn't object to the marriage, but he wasn't particularly interested in me either. He probably thought I was just a convenient woman at the right place. Even after joining the workforce, Matthew's bitter personality remained. That woman in sales, always sticking her nose into my business just because she's a woman. Women should just quietly serve tea or something. There's this guy in the operations department, a pathetic guy who's too nice even to women. Can you believe it? Men should act more confidently. And so, he would complain every day at home. I listened and nodded, thinking to myself, Matthew can't do without me. He's so fragile, I have to protect him. This was how I convinced myself that I was needed by Matthew. However, one day, as I was emptying his suit pockets to send it for cleaning, I found, what's this? A hotel keycard and a condom. It was clear evidence of infidelity. I knew Matthew treated me as someone convenient. But still, I chose to support him. Yet, being faced with the possibility of his infidelity shook me more than I expected. Maybe I should just get a divorce. But if I leave, Matthew might fall apart. I guess I need to be by his side. But then again, staying with him like this is hard. I was caught in a loop of these thoughts for days. During this time, I received a call that Matthew had been in an accident. That day, he had said he was going on a business trip for a few days and left in his car. The trip was to the neighboring county, and he had an accident on the way there. Now he's been taken to the hospital. I hurriedly packed what seemed necessary and headed to the hospital. Matthew! Are you okay? Although I went to the hospital, it was quite some time before I could actually see Matthew. You finally arrived. Took you long enough. It was the first thing Matthew, covered in bandages, complained about. It couldn't be helped. I came as soon as I could, but you were in surgery, and then it was past visiting hours, and there were procedures to follow. Don't make excuses. Aren't you worried about me? After being yelled at, I kept my mouth shut, and then he said, I've got broken bones all over, it's such a hassle. I can't even eat like this. Sally, you'll take care of me, right? I couldn't immediately nod in agreement. Why don't you ask your lover to help? What are you talking about, a lover? You have one, right? I heard you were in the car with a woman when the accident happened. That was just a coworker from work who was with me in the accident. Then I'll check with your company. Not too long ago, I found a hotel keycard and a condom in your suit pocket. So, I don't need to hide it anymore, huh? Hey, open the curtain next to you. Matthew gave an impolite order. It seemed that Matthew was in a shared room, and it appeared that there were only 2 people in the room, including Matthew. When I opened the curtain, my eyes widened in surprise. Chris. Why are you here? At my words, Chris turned her face away in a sulk. The mistress is her. Matthew said, leaving me speechless. Chris is my brother-in-law's wife. In other words, she's Matthew's sister-in-law. Remember when my brother got married last year? I've been thinking since then. I wondered how my brother would feel if I took away the woman important to him. When I tried hitting on Chris, she switched to me without hesitation. I'm looking forward to seeing the look on my brother's face when he finds out his wife is crazy about me. Matthew laughed as if he found it amusing. There's no way I'm crazy about you. Don't be so full of yourself. Chris cut Matthew off sharply, and his face stiffened. What do you mean? You said that you preferred me over my brother, that I was much better. That was just politeness. I only thought about switching to you because you seemed better than Sam, who always bragged about his amazing brother. But there's nothing about you that's better than Sam. What did you say? You just say whatever you want. What about it? It's your fault I got injured this badly. I should have never gone along with your invitation in the first place. As they continued to hurl insults at each other, the door of the large room swung open. There stood Sam, the brother-in-law. I hear you two were in a car together and had an accident. So what if we were? Is there a problem? She's my wife, isn't she? Don't you think it's unreasonable to go out this far with someone else's wife? It might be unreasonable by societal standards, but it's normal for me. The sister-in-law seemed troubled, so I was just giving her advice. We drove out a bit while talking, that's all. You're not suspecting something between me and Chris, are you? My accomplished big brother? Is that all you have to say? Sam, really, it was nothing. We were just talking. Unfortunately, I've already looked into the 2 of you. It's too late for excuses now. Sam scattered a bunch of photos over the bed where Matthew was lying. What is this? You can see for yourself, they're photos of the 2 of you sneaking around. Photos of you leaving and entering a hotel might be weak evidence, but with this many, it's enough. Did you hire a detective? That's a dirty trick. The only one playing dirty is you. I knew you've always felt inferior to me, but I never thought you'd drag my wife into this. Well, Chris is to blame for going along with it too. Sam, I was threatened by this man. Chris, those excuses are no longer necessary. I realized you were keenly approaching me for my status. I married you because I thought you were cute, even if you were after my status. I thought it was okay as long as you cared for me. But to be betrayed like this, it's disappointing. From now on, please contact me through a lawyer. Sam. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Chris began to cry in bed. Perhaps she thought kind-hearted Sam would forgive her, but being rejected by Sam made her face reality. Chris's sobbing filled the room as the door opened again. When I turned around to see who had come in, I couldn't help but exclaim loudly. Father! What happened to you? Entering through the hospital room door was my father-in-law in a wheelchair. The nurse who seemed to have pushed him and left the room, and my father-in-law positioned himself next to Sam. Sam didn't change his expression, as if he knew his father was coming. Matthew, on the other hand, seemed unaware of why his father was in a wheelchair. I didn't know either. I had just met my father-in-law recently, and at that time, there was no sign of him being in a wheelchair or having any illness or injury. Father, what happened to you? Sally, dear, I'm sorry to have startled you. What, did Dad get injured too? Bad timing. Sally is supposed to take care of me, so Dad, you'll need to find someone to take care of you. You're not gonna say it's because she's your son's wife, right? Matthew said with a laugh that seemed to mock his father, who then sighed deeply. I didn't intend to raise you and Sam any differently. Perhaps there was a limit to what I could do raising you on my own. What are you saying, sounding all sarcastic? If you have something to say, just say it clearly. Why do you think I'm injured at the same time? Because the other party in your accident was me. Huh? What do you mean? That means, the person you were tailgating was me. Hearing his father's words, I could see Matthew's face turn pale. You're lying. That car was supposed to be a compact car. I'm saying that compact car was me. I've gotten older, and there are more accidents involving elderly people lately. I still need to drive for work, but to reduce the risk of accidents, I decided to switch to a compact car that's easier to maneuver. I didn't specifically tell you because there wasn't an opportunity, but I never thought I'd be tailgated by my own son. Excuse me, Father, what does tailgating mean? Sally, dear, you hadn't heard? There might have been a notification about Matthew's accident, but to be precise, that accident was caused by Matthew. What do you mean? As I asked, struggling to understand, my father-in-law explained the details of the accident. Just before the accident, he was on the freeway. On his way to a client's place for work, he noticed a car sticking too close behind him. He was driving in the right lane, but the car behind kept reducing and then increasing the distance between them. Is this what they call tailgating? I'd be in trouble if this leads to an accident, so I thought I'd let them pass. Despite an empty left lane, the car behind showed no intention of changing lanes. Reluctantly, my father-in-law decided to move to the left lane to let them pass, but the car followed him, changing lanes as well, and continued to tailgate. If this keeps up, it won't be surprising if I get into an accident. I have to get away from this car somehow. The more my father-in-law panicked, the more the car seemed to mock him by following closely and not leaving him alone. Eventually, the car even cut in front of my father-in-law's car and slammed on the brakes. Frustrated by the severe tailgating, my father-in-law's attention waned. It seems he was slow to notice the car in front of him starting to slow down. Just then, as the tailgating car was side by side with my father-in-law's car, he tried to look at the driver, thinking, this is bad. The car in front braked and stopped. My father-in-law noticed too late and swerved to avoid hitting the car in front of him. His car made a sharp turn and crashed into the wall on the shoulder of the road. Even though it was on the highway, it was before a traffic jam, so he wasn't going very fast, and fortunately, his life wasn't in danger. However, the impact broke his leg, forcing him into a wheelchair for some time. I realized the person I saw right before the accident was my own son, after getting treatment for my leg and taking a moment to reflect. I was shocked when I realized. At first, I thought it was just a stranger who looked a lot like him, but then I received a call about Matthew's accident. We were in the same hospital, so I had to admit it was Matthew. Can you imagine? A grown man in his 30s driving that recklessly. And to think it was my own son, how could I not be surprised? Stop with the sarcastic tone. It doesn't make sense that Dad, driving a compact car, only got minor injuries, while I, in a luxury car, ended up with fractures all over. That's your own fault. My father-in-law said with a sigh, then told me about the accident based on what the police had informed him. Apparently, Matthew's car sped up to overtake my father-in-law's car in the right lane, but when the car in front braked, Matthew couldn't stop in time and crashed into it. To make matters worse, a large truck was coming from behind. The truck had seen Matthew's erratic driving and kept a distance. But it couldn't stop in time and ended up crashing into the back of Matthew's car. Your car being a luxury vehicle with better durability certainly played a role, but the truck behind keeping its distance and braking early saved you. You might have died if things went slightly differently. Be thankful you only got injured. My father-in-law's words left Matthew sulking in silence. Why did you even tailgate in the first place? It's not like there was a big reason. I got mad because that car suddenly cut in front of me. It's a highway. Lane changes happen. I must have checked the distance properly before changing lanes. Want to check the dashcam footage? Matthew clicked his tongue and fell silent again. My father-in-law watched him for a moment, then said, "You haven't changed a bit since you were little. I tried to raise you and Sam equally. I'm well aware there were things I could have done better, but watching you grow increasingly complex about Sam over the years, I did what I could. But you're nearly 30 now, a full-grown adult. I can understand your envy of your accomplished brother, but there's nothing more I can do. Reflect on your actions."
Shut up. What do you know? If you're saying I'm bad, then my brother is just as bad. It's his fault I ended up like this. If it weren't for him, Enough already.
The hospital room fell silent at my father-in-law's sharp reprimand.
At your age, how long do you plan to blame others? Shame on you. There's nothing more I can do for you. You need to take responsibility for your own actions.
After my father-in-law finished speaking, Sam stepped forward and said, "I've decided to stop holding back with you. Talking to you is a waste of time. You will settle this matter properly. I'll make sure to get the compensation I'm due." With that, Sam firmly informed Matthew and then pushed my father-in-law's wheelchair, leaving the hospital room together. Left alone, Matthew turned to me and demanded, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, "They both just say whatever they want. Remember this when I'm healed, Sally. I'm counting on you to take care of me. Start by arranging for a private room." "Matthew, why do you believe so strongly that I'll take care of you?" "What do you mean?" "What do I mean? You complain to me the moment I show up worried about you. Not to mention, the accident was caused by your tailgating, and you had your brother's wife, your affair partner, in the car. And yet, you show no remorse, still lashing out at your brother at the age of 30. Who would want to take care of a man like that?" As I laid into him, Matthew stared at me, his mouth agape, obviously not expecting me. I had always been submissive, but then talked back.
You too, criticizing me. You've known me long enough to see how horribly I've been treated, Sally.
Yes, I've watched your family closely since we were children. I know your father loved you and Sam equally, and Sam cared for you, holding back for your sake. But none of it ever reached you.
What's this all of a sudden? You're just supposed to listen to me.
Perhaps that's how I used to be. But I've grown tired of it. When I realized you were having an affair, I thought a lot. You've always been indifferent to me. So, you didn't even bother to hide the evidence of your affair. Why should I stay with someone who doesn't cherish me? Even as Matthew raised his voice, I continued to speak calmly, and he began to sense the difference, feeling a panic he hadn't before. Sure, I had an affair. But it was to get back at my brother, not because I loved Chris more than you, Sally. You're the one I love the most. After all, it's you I'm supposed to come back to in the end. There's nothing for you to worry about.
I don't want to hear such cliches from a cheater. The love was almost gone, what remained was just affection. And that affection has now dried up. Matthew, I want a divorce. And make sure to pay the compensation for your affair. You're joking, right? You're going to abandon me in this state. Unfortunately, I do feel sorry for you, but as your father said, you brought this upon yourself. Sally! I apologize for everything up to now. Please don't abandon me. What am I supposed to do if you leave me now? That's no longer my concern. Well then, Matthew, thank you for everything. I'll move out before you're discharged. Wait. Sally, Sally! I turned my back on Matthew and left the hospital room. True to my word, I immediately packed my things and left the house upon returning. It's been 2 years since that day, and I haven't seen Matthew once. Although I never meet Matthew, I occasionally hear about how he's doing.
The reason is, Sally, you're spacing out. What's on your mind? Nothing much. Just reminiscing about the past. About your brother? I'm not too fond of that.
Don't worry, I have no love left for him anymore.
The person I'm laughing and talking with is Sam, Matthew's brother. I was able to divorce Matthew quickly. Despite his clingy behavior in the hospital, he probably couldn't bear to rely on me because of his pride. However, I wasn't completely over Matthew and spent days questioning if I had made the right decision.
I was really glad when you came to see me while I was feeling down.
I knew you had always cared for Matthew since we were kids. Even though you decided to leave him, I thought you must be feeling down. Well, I had my own motives too, Sam said with a mischievous smile. One day, Sam suddenly came to visit me. At first, he would just make small talk and leave, but as he visited more frequently, we started going out and having meals together. Sam frequently visited me when I was feeling down. Even though you were hurt by your wife's infidelity, why are you so kind to me? You don't have to push yourself.
Sure, the damage from being cheated on by my spouse was significant, but now coming to see you, Sally, is my greatest pleasure.
What? But I haven't done anything for you.
Just having you here is enough for me. Actually, I've liked you since we were kids. But you were always so focused on Matthew that I gave up. I know it might not be right to say this when you're hurt, but could you consider choosing me this time?
But I don't think I'm worthy of you, Sam.
You're still poisoned by Matthew, aren't you? I'm not asking for anything grand. I just want to be with you. Will you think about it?
Sam patiently waited for my response. Touched by Sam's kindness, my heart healed, and I chose to spend my life with him. Matthew and I were probably in a codependent relationship. Probably so. It's good you managed to break free.
I was able to recover thanks to you, Sam, but I wonder if Matthew can recover.
Hard to say. It's become quite complicated, so it might be difficult. Matthew ended up neglecting his injury rehab, right? Yeah. Matthew hates being told what to do. If he had followed the instructions seriously, he could have fully recovered, but now he's left with some disabilities in his arm and leg. His company executives were actually pleased to have a reason to fire him. Despite all the complaints Matthew made about his father and Sam, he actually worked at a subsidiary company owned by his father. Matthew was competent at his job, but his attitude towards others seemed to be the issue. It's easy to imagine that he behaved at the company just like he did with me. Due to his blood relation, the company's upper management found it difficult to fire or demote him, leaving them frustrated. Unbeknownst to his father, after the accident, when his father investigated Matthew's conduct at work and found out he was causing trouble, he apologized profusely. Then, citing his physical disabilities as a reason, he was advised to resign. Well, that company allowed remote work, so he could have continued working there. But with his high pride, Matthew probably found it impossible to stay after being told he would be fired, so he resigned voluntarily. Thanks to that pride, both Sam and I received compensation, which is nice. It's not about the money, though. For us, it was necessary for closure.
Indeed, it helped me sort out my feelings.
Let's use this money for our future. Saying that, I stroked my belly. Inside me, there's a child I'm expecting with Sam. My father-in-law is very pleased and looking forward to the birth. But I wonder, after paying the compensation, Matthew must be left with almost no money. Well, he's capable of working, so as long as he finds a job, he won't struggle to eat. If only he wouldn't compare himself to you. It would be good if he realizes that. Yeah. Since he's still family, I'll quietly keep an eye on him to see what he does next. Years later, Sam has hired a detective to periodically report on Matthew's condition. After our divorce and paying the compensation, leaving his original company on his own terms, Matthew has been hopping from one company to another. Despite being capable, his high pride and condescending nature have caused him to isolate himself and resign repeatedly. Because he paid the full amount of the compensation in one go, bragging perhaps, his savings dwindled, and now he lives alone in a small apartment. Being the son of a wealthy company owner and having worked at a subsidiary with a decent salary, living in an apartment is not to his liking. Furthermore, his extravagant spending means he's barely making ends meet, now drinking more due to stress and leading a rough life. I was shown photos by the detective, showing him in a wrinkled suit, with a flushed face possibly from the alcohol, heading to work. His hair has thinned, and in just a few years, he's almost doubled in width. If we passed by on the street, I might not recognize him as Matthew. As for me, I'm still living happily with Sam. I'm currently pregnant with our second child. Sam takes great care of me, and in return, I aim to support him as well. If only Matthew had valued what was right in front of him instead of envying Sam. I hope our children will grow up to be like Sam.